This time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, June 28th of 2022 in the city council chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have in chambers District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayrani Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem. Not joining us tonight, but excused are District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and District 5, Tim Royce. There is a quorum present, and so we'll move forward with the meeting. Before we get started, if everyone would please turn off their mobile devices, silence those for the remainder of the meeting. This time, Grady, would you lead us in invocation? Please, everyone, stand and remain standing for the pledges.
We bow our heads, please. Oh, Father God, we come giving you thanks for this day. We're grateful for where you brought us. We thank you for your wisdom and your power that has kept us. We ask that you would continue to guide us and lead us in your wisdom, that we would make the right decisions to move the city forward that would benefit all of our citizens. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is mayor and council community recognitions and events. I spent some time before the meeting with the family, the McCrarys, and their son, who is into non-wing sprint car racing. Learned a lot about sprint cars and what that is and what it entails. Enjoyed my visit. I do want to recognize Caden McCrary. Caden, if you would, please come forward. Caden is 15 years old. He's one of our own. He's from Terrell. And like I said earlier, he races non-wing 410 sprint cars. He grew up riding dirt bikes, began racing competitively in 2020. On June the 25th, he won first place at the Southwestern Championship in the ASCS Elite Non-Wing Sprint Car Series at the Route 66 Motor Speedway in Amarillo. You may follow his career on his Facebook page, McCreary Racing 11. Like I said before, I spent some time with he and his family before the meeting, and what a great story you have to tell. So, like I told you back in the Tommy Spencer room, you don't have a bigger fan that's not a family than our councilman over here, Grady Simpson. So he thinks highly of you. Congratulations on your win. Is there anything you would like to say?
Yes, I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, and then my sponsors, Platinum Collision, Or Speed Industries, Carbon Safety Technologies, High Plains Building Division, Abilene Powder Coating, Sticky Ribs Barbecue, Barnett Insurance Agency, Dallas Fort Worth Urethane, Wolf Trailers BMF Customs, Texas Aeroplastics, and DPC Media.
Okay, wonderful. So he's ready for interviews after the meeting.
I'm going to say that was excellent, and I bet you somebody with Teagnall and Perkins, an engineering firm, would love to sponsor you as well. So you turn around to the guy in the blue shirt back over there, other side. Yeah, there you go, and see if you get a TNP logo on your shirt. Because you are under 18, I always feel obligated to ask the following question when we have a young person here. Can you tell me one good thing about your mother?
She supports me.
There you go.
That's a hobby that I choose.
Well, that's wonderful. All right. Okay.
So I have a gift.
Never forget mom.
Yep, I have a gift from the mayor, and then Grady, if you want to come forward, Mayor Ron, if you want to come forward and take a photo, please. Just in recognition. So that's gonna be on his car one day, the City of Terrell logo. And then we're gonna take one with the family. So would the family come forward, and Allison can send you, a copy of this. I got money that Allison's is better than Lee's, but I don't.
Congratulations. I have written down your card, the Christmas present. You have it?
Thank you.
Again, Caden, congratulations. It was a pleasure meeting you. Now we're gonna get into all the fun stuff. So if you think racing's fun, stay for this meeting and you'll see.
Mayor, can I do a
Yes.
recognition also?
Sure.
My recognition is our own fire department. There was
Okay.
a fairly large grass fire today, about 30 acres caught on fire down close to Home Depot. And they circled it up and got it isolated and protected. And it did not spread into the neighboring apartment complex and retail. So you always got to thank the firefighters when they do a good job, and that meant a lot. Grass fire out of control in weather like this is a terrible thing, and it's also a good thing to remind ourselves that there's a county burn ban that went into effect today as well.
Yeah, I was out during lunch when that happened. I noticed all the smoke and then the response. So it looked like we had other departments respond to
Several,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, hearing none. Our next item on the agenda is to hear remarks from visitors. Do we have anyone? We have no one, so we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. Discuss and consider minutes from the regular city council meeting on June the 21st of 2022. Is there any comments or a motion?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the regular city council meeting on June 21st of 2020 as presented.
We have a motion for Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
The motion passes with unanimous consent of those present. Our next item on the agenda is to discuss appointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustments. Don.
Mayor and council, in your packet is an email from Carolyn Fairley. She has moved to Florida, and she will not be able to serve on the ZBA any longer. The roster is in your packet as well that shows all of the members, and then there's several applications in there. And this is under the oversight of Tim Royce.
Okay, so Tim isn't here tonight. Normally what we do is we wait and let that,
And it's only for discussion.
it's only for discussion anyway, so, okay. We'll wait to hear comments from Mr. Royce on that one. Our next item on the agenda is discuss and consider appointment of Planning and Zoning Commission. Don?
Mayor and council, this board is under the oversight of Mayrani Velasquez, and I believe that she wants to table this item, or actually to postpone this item.
Wants to postpone this item to a later date. Is that correct? Mayor, you want to postpone it to a later date? Or do you want to take some action tonight?
Mayor,
So you need some more time?
so if I will, I'll make a motion to
Okay.
table
Postpone.
Postpone item 7.2 to the next meeting.
Okay. We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council. Those present. Next item on the agenda is discussion items. Discuss 8.1 is discuss updated strategic plan. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we've been working on this quite a bit, and we got close to the goal line here recently, and then we decided that we would take a deep breath and see if there were any last council comments. We got about a page and a half of council comments, and recently started the opportunity to work those in. I would call a lot of those important but detailed also. And so we've put those in here. It's only on your agenda for discussion. We've sent that city council person a little cheat sheet to show where the changes were made. I would say that some of the highlights here are just things like making sure that we have better communication with our local nonprofits, bring them in, help us help them and help them meet the needs of the city. Issues like dealing in our Spanish language programs with the Terrell Police Department. And I won't try to go through all of those right now. Options there to look at Bryn Street. We've known for some time, in fact, Bryn was a street we tried to get done a couple of years ago. It's got a concrete base to it that is dilapidated and old, and then a very odd combination of asphalt has been put on it in fits and starts over the years. So we know we've got a lot of work to do on Bryn, but we will make an evaluation of Bryn with our engineering team to try to figure out what we can do about that and how quickly we might be able to do something with that. So we added those sorts of things into the list. Staff was happy with all the changes, and so I'll just encourage folks to look through that again, and then we'll bring it back to your next meeting for approval. The only other thing that was asked for by council since the last time we talked was adding that page that shows up on page 61 of your agenda, which is just clarifying, hey, you're not voting to approve everything after this page. That's just the appendix that's got some reference materials in it that we thought would be handy for council.
Okay. Does anybody have any additions for or direction for Mr. Sims as it pertains to the strategic plan? Yes.
No, just thank you to staff and our city manager, Mike Sims, for reviewing those additional items and having them added to the strategic plan.
All right, our next item on the agenda is discuss First Amendment to the Windsor Avenue Development Partnership. Again, Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is the land area that you would think of as being just to the south of, I guess I'll call it south of Gilbert Willey Elementary School and north of the Woodlands, okay? So if you can imagine in your mind where Windsor will eventually connect between Rockwall and then over to Rose Hill, that's the piece of land we're talking about. And we have been looking at this off and on for some time. Back in 2018, we did a developers agreement with a company called SRD Land Investments on this piece of land in order to kind of incent it. It's in your tax increment refinance zone. And frankly, since we did the development agreement, it's kind of sat and nothing really happened on it. It was originally intended for about 250 homes on 61 acres. There was a PD approved by City Council and by P&Z also in 2018. So we knew, kind of keeping track of the project, that it had, as a piece of land, sold and resold several times since 2018. So we had the latest ownership group come forward, and this time around it's Liberty Bankers Life Insurance Company, and what they're asking to do is just a little update to the development agreement. And we put a summary of that into the agenda item report, probably easiest to read off of page 131 in your packet. So they're requesting an amendment. This would have the effect of amending some of the quality standards associated with the project. It's a little confusing because there's about 9 acres of townhomes to the south end of it, but this has nothing to do with townhomes. So you see the word townhome in here, but that's not what this project is. This is about 61 acres of single-family homes. So what changed? We changed our street standard. As you know, we've been in the process working with our engineering team about adjusting our street standards so that we have a little bit wider of an area from sidewalk to sidewalk. The new standard is 60 feet. We're actually increasing the one embedded in this development agreement from 50 feet to 58 feet. So that was an important thing. We've changed the brick and stone requirement from 0 all the way up to 48 inches above of the elevation. On each elevation has to be brick and stone, and it can be other materials above that. The consolidated development fee, which again is the turn of phrase that we use for impact fees and building permit fees and park fees all lumped together. They were at $4,702. We raised those to $7,200 per single-family dwelling. Those were originally not going to be paid until you got maybe to the second or third phase of houses. Now they're going to be paid for all of the houses, so that's a good financial benefit for us. And then it also extends the reimbursement eligibility for 5 years. And that was really what the developer was looking for. When they build Windsor as part of this project, they wanted to make sure the tax increment refinance district was willing to repay that as well. So it doesn't change the total amount that we would pay out on the project. There's a cap embedded in the agreement for that. I believe it's about $2.1 million, so that does not change. It does not change on the element that we only pay out for houses that have a homestead exemption, so that's an important part of it as well. So we think it's a good amendment. We think it's ready to go, but we did want to put it onto the agenda tonight for discussion, see if there's any questions, and then if it's to the council's liking, we'll bring it back next time around.
Yes, Mr. Sims?
Yes.
The consolidated development fee, could you explain that, 4702 to 7200? What is,
Sure.
It's like impact fees, correct?
It's a turn of phrase that we use when we want to lock in a certain dollar amount. And so you often see us use the phrase consolidated development fee when we're collecting a negotiated fee as opposed to the standard fees. So they would not pay roadway impact fees, water impact fees, building permit fees, park dedication fees. They go ahead and they do pay their sewer impact fees. So you can see that's listed as $2,239. So we'll collect a sewer impact fee, put that into the impact fee fund. Then we'll collect, instead of collecting the smaller dollar amount, we'll collect the $7,200 and no payment of roadway impact fees, water impact fees, building permit fee, park dedication fees. We'll instead take that $7,200 and do some of the exact same things, right? So we'll do some roadway work, we'll do some park work over at Breezy Hill, which is embedded into this agreement. We'll do the same work and we'll use the money for the same purposes, but because we've inserted into the development agreement as a negotiated number, we just like to use that consolidated development fee nickname for that.
But you just saying you're just collecting everything up front?
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They cannot get a building permit on each individual house until they pay that fee.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And Mike, my follow-up question to the development fee. So what I understand is that those fees are going to go directly into the general budget versus going into all the different accounts or line items in those separate accounts. Should we have not moved forward with consolidating the development fees?
I guess I would say that the right way to answer that question is the consolidated development fee is a payment we make into the impact fee fund. Yeah.
And the impact fee fund, as you mentioned, is specifically dedicated to
Roads, water, and
roads,
sewer.
water and sewer.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Okay, and I guess maybe I'll make the additional clarification. In the original agreement, we're taking some money that gets repaid by the tax increment refinance zone, and we actually transfer some money from the TERS. This is in TERS number 1. We actually transfer some TERS money generated by this project into the Breezy Hill Park Fund. So they pay $250,000. Again, as their property taxes come in, they pay $250,000 into park fees related to Breezy Hill. and then $359,000 gets transferred over also into the Water Impact Fee Fund. So this is a good example about one of our projects that's putting money into the Impact Fee Fund.
Anyone else? Next item on the agenda is 8.3, discuss memorandum of understanding between the City of Terrell and Tellus, Texas 2 LLC and Trilogy, Texas LLC. John Godwin, I guess.
I think John told me he was hustling down here to get here at 6:30, and
Do we
I'm
want
just,
to table this for a little bit later?
yeah, we could skip it for, yeah.
Why don't we, do I need a motion to table? Oh, here he is.
Oh, my gosh. Ladies and
Perfect
gentlemen,
timing.
perfect timing. John, it's
You're
your
up.
turn.
You don't get a
Yeah.
water, you don't get anything, come to the mic.
Yeah, there you go, yeah, So, Mayor and Council, I think that you're going to find all of this. Let's get you on the right agenda page here, so. Yeah. Here. John, I'm gonna let you hit the high points of that PowerPoint real quick while I go grab one other piece of paper.
Okay, so this goes back to a couple of years. We've been working with McLennan Chisholm and how this kind of got started. McLennan Chisholm was looking to become a retailer, a water retailer, looking to buy wholesale water from us in exchange for some swapping of ETJ. That did not pan out yet, although we're still working on that. McLennan Chisholm doesn't have the ability to issue that kind of debt at this point that would require them to become a retailer. And so they're not ready to get their own CCN yet either. But in the meantime, we did work a lot with the Mann property. The Mann property is kind of how this came up, was us serving water to the Mann property so that it could be in McLennan Chisholm. The Mann property stuck around. They're still going to develop that. Sue Mann's anxious to get that built out. She's been trying for quite a long time. She's on at least her second developer now, which is the Tellus group. And they have this plan for Tapestry, which is mostly single family, a little bit of multifamily mixed in there as well. And then along the way, we came to Huffines. And Huffines is a little bit farther north. These are on the west side, northwest side of, or southwest and northwest side of McLennan Chisholm. And so both of these are served by water supply corporations. RCH serves the area that Huffines is building in, and then High Point, which is one of our own wholesale customers already would serve the Mann area. The problems with both of those is that because they're relatively small, they don't have the capacity to serve the way a city like Terrell can. Terrell being a customer city, Terrell having the established personnel and established policies and procedures and so forth and so on. And so we're looking we've investigated working a deal, so to speak, and of course the MOU or the Memorandum of Understanding is what's on your agenda tonight for discussion, to build those lines moving us northwest. And that'll trigger, if that does happen, that'll trigger us entering into a new contract, overall utility services contract with North Texas Municipal Water District, where we buy our water and then resell it to a number of folks. And so part of that requires us to design and construct additional storage space so that we can have a higher ratio of storage to usage. And in this case, of course, we'll also have to have pumping capacity. This line, which will serve Tellus and Huffines, Trilogy, and Tapestry, we also will design that so that it can be expanded. And so if we do work a deal with McLennan Chisholm, then it's easy to work that. If there are other property owners, and there's a lot of large property owners between us and McLennan Chisholm, frankly, that are a lot closer than these two properties, and so we're hoping that happens. When those things come along, we want them to be in Terrell, and we want to be the server of water. In those cases, some of those may be retail providing. This, of course, is just wholesale. And then I guess next slide, even though Mike's not back yet. Oh, I've got this clicker. And so, speaking of wholesale customers, these are some of the ones that the city, maybe this is all the ones the city already has. Elmo, College Bound, North Kaufman, Lawrence Water Supply Corporation, which you may recall, we're in the process of purchasing half of that. And then Poetry and High Point, which is, High Point's a SUD, I said WSC. So those are the folks that we're selling water to now. So it's not something new. Terrell's been a wholesaler for a long, long time. Buying water and then reselling it to these other folks that supply water directly. again, High Point served a very good purpose. It's still a viable corporation or a viable district. It just doesn't have the capacity to serve this development this far north, and so it gives us an opportunity to step into that breach and hopefully be ready for us to move forward. This is kind of the nuts and bolts of it, literally and figuratively. And so down at the bottom, you see that's where this is going to start. There'll be a 20-inch water line going to the northwest. And you see Rockwall County's up at the top there. And so that's where we'll be going all the way to the Rockwall County border. Over there where that magenta color is, that's the tapestry, that's the man property. And so the blue line will be expenditures by the city. That'll include, again, pumping and some storage stuff. And as we move north on the red line, that will phase from the city will be paying for all of that to the developers will be paying for percentages based on various things, which we won't go into tonight. It'll get to the again, the magenta, the Tellus property there. It'll serve that area, and then everything on site will be 100% 100% of the cost of the developer, Tellus. And then from there, it'll go north all the way up to the Huffines property, the Trilogy property, and everything in the green, or I'm sorry, the green, certainly inside the green, but also the red water line on the way up there will also be Huffines' responsibility. So I'll start to say next slide again. This kind of shows the same thing, shows the phasing a little bit better. This map's a little bit hard to see, but you see starting again at the bottom, the magenta line, the blue line, and then the kind of teal color, and then the red and the green. So those are the different physical phases, and there's, in the agreement, there's an attachment that actually shows the proration of all the cost of those different phases. All those phases will be built fairly quickly, but there would be phases in the future too. Part of that is we got a 5-year time frame here in which we're trying to be able to provide water for these folks. They're not going to build all of their houses all at once, of course, and so for the first 5 years, we'll build a system that allows us to serve them through that period of time. Once that gets built, they'll start building their subdivisions, their housing units, and then when they get to a certain number, according to the agreement, then they'll have to start construction on additional infrastructure out there, so that at the end of the 5 years, they'll have the next big phase. This is the phasing. This phasing goes along with the map. So the first part of that, of course, is again, down there is that 20-inch line by the city, 2/3 of a mile. The next piece runs along Colquitt, and you see that's where the next 2 miles, a little over 2 miles, gets divided into 3 different pieces. Tellus is the biggest piece of that because of their water needs. And at some point, it becomes an 18-inch line because it's going to be serving a smaller group of people. Somewhere along the way, if we need to Y off of that, if we need to turn off of that, L off of that to serve other people, whether that's, I won't name names, but other large property owners or McLennan Chisholm, then we'll have easements. We'll have to acquire easements for most of these. A few cases, actual property acquisitions, but we'll be acquiring easements for these. We'll acquire like a 20-foot easement for their purposes. We'll have an additional 10 feet in case we have to drop another parallel line into the system so that we can serve additional folks. So this is it's a two-part thing. Obviously, hopefully obvious, that we're trying to do something short-term, and that we're also hoping to set ourselves up as a city to serve other areas, either retail or wholesale or both. And then finally, the phase 2 construction, private on-site pump stations. That's the part that they will have to do on-site themselves. We don't build that for them. We don't pay for that for them. They do that work themselves, and they pay for that 100% 50/50. Phase 3, the Terrell pump station. That will serve all of those, the meter vault, all those things that we have to connect from North Texas Municipal Water District to buy water from them. That'll be split, again, based on a pro rata share on a number of different things. And then we'll have to pay for an elevated storage tank for any of our retail customers that we will have in the future. North Texas Municipal Water District contract, they'll have to approve this. This is kind of different, so we'll have to go to North Texas because, again, all of this is in somebody else's CCN. So we'll have to go to North Texas and say, gee, we want to start selling wholesale water to these people outside of our normal CCN. We've been talking to North Texas for over a year now. I have been, mostly Mike has as well. I think the mayor met with them once. I've got a meeting with them tomorrow or Thursday of this week. So they know this is coming. We're not surprising North Texas. They've been good partners. They've been good suppliers. And they're a good outfit, so to speak. But because of that, as I kind of mentioned, if they approve this, they will make us go ahead to go to this new contract. New contract does a lot of things, and the two big things are it affects the rates, how rates are developed by their customers, customer cities and districts and so forth. And also, it affects the storage capacity that we're required. So that's about $5.7 million just for that the storage part of that. We will have to amend we will choose to amend our facilities agreement. The facilities agreement is a kind of a bonus tool that North Texas offers its customers. They will finance some of your debt so that they actually incur the debt on their end, and then we pay them back. And so we've got some debt that's going to be retiring here fairly soon, so we can incur that additional debt without increasing the amount that we will owe to North Texas. And then finally, benefits to Texas, new wholesale customers, to Terrell, additional wholesale customers that will generate some revenues, the expansion of our infrastructure, again, as I already said, for future growth, both retail and wholesale, acquisition of land and easements for that same thing, talked about that, the expansion into the High Point Water Supply Corporation. We think we will probably expand into that area more because a large part of the area is immediately north of the western part of Terrell is a natural growth corridor for Terrell. We're looking at areas very far north as potential customers, and so that's going to bring us into conflict, unfortunately. Hopefully not a difficult conflict, but with High Point. This will help us with future annexations. We have a number of voluntary annexations that are ongoing right now, as you know. So we'll have future annexations. And whenever you bring, we've talked about this before in other contexts, whenever you bring someone into your city, you want to be able to be the one to selling them water. You don't want somebody else selling water to people inside your city. You want to control that because that's one of the basic functions, obviously, of local government. Partnerships will share the cost of the lines. It won't be as expensive. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, fostering future partnerships with McLennan and Chisholm. We still think that'll happen. We just don't know how soon that'll happen. So that's my deal.
John, could you introduce the guests that are here with us today?
Hi. Kind of came in at the last minute. So we've got folks from Tignall and Perkins, Chris, and Andre. I started to say Andre, and I talked myself into thinking that was wrong. And Tignall and Perkins engineering firm that represents or works for, or however the best way to say that is, for Huffines. And then, I'm sorry. I should not have been.
Take a deep breath.
I'm going to make life easy. Hey, if you're with Tellus, would you stand up and tell us your name and tell us just a bit about Tellus?
If you would, come forward. Let's put you up here where we can hear you. Thank you.
Maybe I'll learn something.
Hi, I'm Andre Ferrari. I'm the acquisitions manager at the Tellus Group, and we're a developer that works on developing amenity-rich master plan communities throughout DFW. Our most notable project is Windsor Ranch up in Prosper, Texas, which is about 2,000 acres, 3,300 homes, and that's the one that you might know as the first lagoon in Texas. So we're very excited about our recent acquisition that closed last week of Tapestry, and we've really enjoyed working with the city of Terrell to finding a solution that we all feel gets us all a lot of benefits. So
Mr. Ferrari is doing the project that we would know here locally as the Mann property. Okay, so that's that same piece of land, and that's the one that's right there on FM 548. Okay, so thank you. Awesome. Appreciate it. And so now let's try again. Mr. Cuny, could you tell us all about Huffines?
I got this one right.
Yeah, that's all right. Uh-huh.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having us tonight. Yes, my name is Chris Cuny. I'm a partner with Tignall and Perkins. We're a civil engineer. We have an office in Heath, and our main office is in Fort Worth. And we represent the Huffines on this project that we've termed as Trilogy. And Trilogy is 1,700 residential lots, no multifamily, it's all residential. And Huffines is Philip and Don Huffines are the partners and the brothers that run the deal. We've closed on the property, and we're in the process of preparing plans for infrastructure. And with the limitations on RCH, Mike and I had worked and Steve had worked years ago on a project in Sonoma Verde to try and bring Terrell water to that. And so when this kind of came up and we were kind of having the same issues, we decided to reach out to Terrell. They reached out to us, and we've been talking about this for some time. We're very excited. We think it's a great opportunity to share cost. And one thing I wanted to mention in the presentation, just again, I've served on city council for a number of years, so I know what it's like being on the other side of the bench. The whole concept is that the first phase of the project, from where we start the 20-inch line to the 18-inch line, everybody's basically paying for the portion that they're going to use. So the 20-inch line gives Terrell additional capacity. We've calculated that Tellus and Trilogy only need an 18-inch, so we're paying for ours based on our projected development on connections, and that gives you additional capacity. When we get to a certain point, then we're picking up the full cost, that 18-inch that gets to the Tapestry development. From there, from Tapestry drops off and Trilogy pays for the entire cost of the 12-inch to get to our project. So it's a very equitable deal. That 20-inch capacity may not sound like a lot, but it does give you guys quite a bit of additional capacity to serve to other customers. When you get into diameters, as you go up in size, your capacity grows exponentially. So, and then when we get to the second phase, there's some other pumps that have to come on, and then it's kind of everybody again shares based on their needs. So we think it's a great deal. Mike and staff have been just fantastic to work with. I can't say enough, good things about their forward thinking, and they're willing to work with us. And Steve and his crew have just been great. We've put a lot of sweat equity in this thing, and we think it's beneficial to all parties. We're hoping that someday McLennan Chisholm can step up and maybe have some capacity as well as they try to grow. But that's all I've got to say, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Mayor, let me just mention what we've got on paper in front of you. So the actual memorandum of understanding is something that John and the team have been working on. You can see a lot of whereases there that basically walk you through how this project is set up, who's doing what, who's who, and where they are. You get over to where it starts in with item number 1, now therefore, and then we get a list, right? And so basically the idea of the MOU is everything that John and Chris and Mr. Ferrari just said, all of that is embodied in steps 1 through, I think what we've got, 27 steps here, steps 1 through 18. And, you start off with, we've got to go through CCN process, then you got to go through construction process, then you got to go through selling water. All of those steps are lined out in there one at a time. I believe we've got this MOU 99% done. We've got a little bit of work that we're going to do on the attachments to it, but frankly, the attachments aren't actually that different than the PowerPoint because it kind of lays out who's paying for what. So that's a quick look at it. The disclaimer with anything that has the word understanding in it, memorandum of understanding, is it's all non-binding. Right. This just gives us a written battle plan to say, hey, we're going to try to do this. If there's ever a problem and we've only gotten so far down the line, well, we just stop there, right? So memorandum of understanding, it's non-binding, but it's a roadmap. So, and we would intend to bring this back to you for action sometime soon.
And then just to state the obvious, the memorandum of understanding is the template for an actual development agreement when that time comes. So if that goes through, then that'll be the basis of the national agreement, which will be a binding agreement at that point.
I want to reach out and say thank you to all of the parties that were involved in getting us to where we are today. This is just the beginning of a many-step process, but it does position the city of Terrell for growth as we look to be the water supplier, not only to the residents, but north of Terrell. And also, we always appreciate and need the good relationship that we have with North Texas Municipal Water District, and hope that relationship moving forward continues to grow, and it's a win-win for all the parties. So does anybody have any comments or questions?
Just, John, that pipe is just being rerouted, right?
No, it's a new pipe. Is it a new pipe?
It's a new pipe?
It's all new. We'll acquire a site from which it'll start, and then all of that'll be easements that'll be acquired, and then it'll all be a construction. So it's a very large construction
What I'm
project.
asking, I guess what I'm asking, on the first map, I saw the blue line, which is North Texas pipe, right? Going across?
No, that's us. That's us.
No, the very first map does have a blue line that is the existing North Texas Municipal Water District water line that feeds us. That existing North Texas water line is coming from the Tawakoni treatment plant,
Yes, sir.
okay? And it eventually gets down close to where our pump station in the Mike Cronin Business Park is. The goal that we have is to have a second take point on that same line.
That's what I was-
And that gives us resiliency, that gives us protection for the future. When I've got one take point, one bad thing can happen at that one place, and then our water customers need help. By eventually building a second take point that would be closer up to State Highway 205, then I've got resiliency. Then I can have a problem at one location, shut it down, still operate. It'll take us a while to really have all the infrastructure necessary for that. But when you talk about long-term goals, again, what I'm preaching to everybody all the time is, we're a city 18,000 now. 20 years from now, we'll be a city of 43,000. When you're a city of 43,000, you need a second take point. And that's what this investment gets us to the point of doing. And someone helps us pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for my tardiness, or almost tardiness, I guess. I have 3 grandchildren from Nevada here that I haven't seen since last year, and so I was running late.
Your timing was impeccable.
You came in right on cue, man.
Grady, that you alluded to is that they're oversizing the line. In other words, the gentleman there mentioned they had an 18-inch line. We're building a 20-inch line, which gives us a little more to sell somewhere else if we need to. But we're doing it now where if we wait and did it later, it would probably cost us a lot more because, prices are going to be. So we're getting a good deal on it now. It's kind of, I guess, like what I used to tell some of my water boards, we're betting on the come right now. So,
All right, thank you, gentlemen. So does anybody have any comments on the memorandum of understanding? Okay, so we're gonna see this again in 2 weeks, or we're gonna see
We're
it?
going to let we've got quite the legal team looking at it. We'll let Greg and Mary Gail look at it again. These nice men have lawyers as well, so we'll go through that again. So with just a little bit more legal work, we'll bring it back when it's ready.
All right, thank you. Thank you all very much, gentlemen, for being here. Our next item on the agenda, discuss and consider FY '22 capital projects budget amendment. This is gonna be our Housing and Finance Director, Jay Ayers. Mr. Ayers.
So while Jay's coming up, I'll kind of give you a bit of a snapshot about what we're looking at here. I want to be clear about what this is and what it's not. What it is primarily capital projects and projects that we are very locked and loaded and confident in. Jay and I have had a different conversation about we continue to work on the personnel issue. And we've talked a few times as I've snapshotted this for you and previewed this for you. We do definitely want to do some stuff with personnel and making sure that we help our employees who are suffering with inflation and other market things right now that are very difficult in the economy. That's not now. We're going to work on that over the next little while, and we'll bring that back at a later time. This is just things that we are confident that we're mostly things we're building that we really need to go ahead and get action on and move forward on. Many of these things were already approved by City Council through different actions to either approve the contract or approve resolutions related to these projects, but we never put them into budget form. And so Jay's taken the lead on that. And Jay, that's my little intro. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay. Mayor and Council, I present to you the second budget amendment, proposed budget amendment for FY '22. And the revenues in the general fund, we're capturing the increase in sales tax. So we've kind of projected that out through the end of the fiscal year, and it's roughly $7.5 million in sales tax revenue that we're expected to receive. And it's just broken down between city sales tax reduction, the EDC, paddock, and capital improvement transfer. Additionally, we have a grant that we're expecting to receive in the police department for body cameras. That's captured in the general fund. in the public-private partnership, we have an increase in the Kaufman County reimbursement revenue, and that's directly from, as a result of the Los Llamas expenditure that you'll see in the expense side of this budget amendment. The tourism fund, upon reviewing the revenues that we've currently received, I went ahead and projected those out for the end of the FY 2022. As you can see, we didn't adopt a budget, but I've inserted the proposed budget amounts expected to be received in revenue in the tourism fund. You have Beaumont Inn and Suites, Sure Stay Hotel. I was listed twice. To correct that one. La Quinta Inn, Holiday Inn Express, Motel 6, Fairfield Inn Suites, Texas Inn Motel, Hilton True, La Quinta Inn Suites, and Quality Inn Suites. And those amounts are listed for your review. The equipment replacement fund, they are experiencing increases in fuel costs. As y'all may already know, gas is roughly like $5 or $6 a gallon right now. So we're transferring an additional amount of revenue into the equipment replacement fund from the general fund and utility fund to cover those expenses. Within the capital improvement fund, the transfer in from the general fund is just the increase in sales tax piece that should be going to that fund. Additionally, we received some sidewalk revenue this year that's already been accounted for. I'm just recognizing that in the capital improvement fund with this budget amendment. Building permits, right now, year to date, we've collected over $160,000 in building permit revenue in the capital improvement fund, and I projected that out to $225,000 for the rest of the fiscal year. Utility capital reserve, this is practically, well, this is a correction. When we adopted the budget, it was at $2.435 million. This adjustment brings it down to $2.197 million. The Information Technology Fund, they're experiencing significant costs and expenses with regards to inflation and things of that nature. So the Information Technology Fund is going to receive additional revenue from the General Fund, Utility Fund to support them through the rest of the fiscal year. In the tiers number 1, we just recognize the revenue that we've received in the TIF so far in Fund 47, and that's over $1.3 million that we've collected this year in revenue. The Parks and Downtown Improvement Corporation, this revenue is just a direct result of sales tax increases. And then that leads us to expenses on the next page. Legislative, you have an increase in the Buc-ee's rebate, the Stallings Fund transfer, Crossroads incentive, the EDC sales tax piece, the Economic Development Corporation, Parks and Downtown Improvement. Those line items are all directly related to sales tax, so those increase.
And I'm just going to pause there and say, so Mayor and Council, that group right there that Jay just listed, those are the ones I keep describing to you as the formulas, right? Those are the ones where we have existing contracts or existing agreements, and we know that the money that comes in from those sources turns around and goes back out to a source by formula or by contract. And so that's what Jay is highlighting there.
In administration, you'll see an increase in equipment rental. This is money that's allocated that actually is transferred into the equipment replacement fund. And a lot of the departments that I'm gonna go through, you'll see that piece over and over again, and that's just that money transferring from those departments to the equipment replacement fund. Animal control, they need additional funding for maintenance traps. It's a zero effect because police is just transferring some of their money into the animal control department to offset it, so it's no impact there. buildings. You have the equipment rental piece, emergency management, equipment rental, municipal development, engineering. They all have vehicles, streets. They have additional costs concerning streets, and they needed those increases in these line items to finish out the rest of the fiscal year. And with the addition in sales tax revenue, I think we have more than enough to cover this little request here in streets to finish out the fiscal year. Sanitation, building ground maintenance, they needed an increase of $5,000 to finish out the fiscal year. The parks, park maintenance, they have to tend to athletic fields. I think that's going to get them through the rest of the fiscal year. The 5,000 additional requests, and the park structure maintenance is an additional 5,000, and landscape services is an additional 25,000 being requested in this budget amendment. And youth services, you have supplies for athletics. That's 7,500, and then that's the equipment rental piece again. In police, the labor was used. They're not expected to use all of that money in that expense account because they've been understaffed for quite some while now in this fiscal year. So they're just transferring that amount to the animal control to cover their expenses for maintenance traps. You have the equipment rental piece again, and then the fire has experienced significant increases in overtime due to COVID and things of that nature. So they're requesting an additional $74,725 in overtime. Vehicle maintenance, that can be contributed to inflation. So they're requesting $35,000 to help with vehicle maintenance. They also have an equipment rental piece that goes into the equipment replacement fund. The library, housing, human resources are all the same. They're transferring money into the equipment replacement fund to assist with the inflation. And the debt service transferring a piece of the general fund. You have the transfer out to general fund, which is a direct effect of sales tax revenue. And then you have the transfer to automation, to information technology, to assist them with the additional costs that they've experienced in the information technology fund. And the next piece, transfer to communication, is the same as the transfer to IT to help with additional spending. The Los Lomas extension is the expense being requested for the Los Lomas project and the tourism fund. I was capturing expenses already expensed out in the tourism fund, with the exception of the event support, which is expected to be used for events related to the tourism fund and the transfer to the hotel event center. Utility fund had a series of requests to increase supplies and apparatus and pump station, elevated towers, machinery maintenance. I guess we've seen a drop in utility, so they decreased there to kind of offset some increases in the other expenditure accounts. Contract labor requesting an increase in $5,000. The equipment rental goes to the equipment replacement fund to cover additional costs concerning fleet. In the water distribution department, what's happening there is money was allocated in the clerical line item, but should have been in labor, so that's just moving that money from clerical to labor to account for that properly. There's an increase of $1,400 for protective clothing, $75,000 for contract labor, $1,000 increase for chemicals. Then you have the equipment replacement fund. The equipment replacement fund piece. Water pollution, they also have the equipment replacement fund piece that goes to the equipment replacement fund. And water collections, they're asking for $1,500 in additional addition to their budget. Protective clothing is an additional $1,000. Contract labor is $60,000, and the equipment replacement fund transfer is also included. Utility billing is decreasing consulting fees and services. It says to offset some of the increases in expenditures. Have an additional $7,050 in postage in the utility billing, and they also have the equipment rental piece that goes to the equipment replacement fund. Utility fund is also contributing an additional $25,000 between the transfer to automation and communications to help with IT and the UCR transfer. There was a correction to make that balance between the UCR and the utility fund at $2,197,500. The equipment replacement fund is asking for an additional $70,000 for fuel for equipment with an increase in gas. Capital improvement fund, there's a $30,000 increase for the deferred park maintenance. We have $15,000 for our traffic study and $390,000 being requested for downtown revitalization.
So just as a clarification there, that's the Grove Street Sidewalk Project. That's kind of a bulky name for downtown revitalization, but that's the name of the grant. But the expense is actually those Grove Street sidewalks you see under construction right now.
And then City Hall improvements, there's an additional $200,000 being requested to cover expenditures. In utility capital reserve, there's an additional $200,000 for water line acquisition and $150,000 request for road spot repairs or utility repairs. In the Parkland Dedication Fund, we funded different projects concerning different parks within their particular zones to cover expenditures for park improvements. You have $153,000 for the Crossroads Gold Star Park. And then you have $45,000 for the Arley Bike Park, $16,000 for Kings Creek, and $35,000 for Breezy Hill Park. In the Stormwater Fund, there's an additional $25,000 being requested for consulting fees and services, and to correct a budget difference between the Stormwater Fund and the General Fund. I'm just doing a correction there to make it balance in the General Fund by requesting an additional $21,630 to get the $168,920 in the General Fund amount in revenue. The Information Technology Fund is requesting $150,000 in network services and $100,000 in facility telephones. In tiers number 1, there's $90,000 being requested for consulting fees and services. There's an additional $33,254.25 that needs to go to Terrell Market Center. $19,934.77 that needs to go to Buc-ee's for reimbursement. Crossroads, there's $133,138.54. There's a subtle change in the Central Cola account. Downtown Project Office is there's a $75,000 request Town Square Master Plan, there's a $150,000 request. And Downtown Sidewalk Grant is a $80,000 request, and Pena Partnership is a $75,000 request.
So Mayor and Council, this is a good example on this page of things you've already seen before. All of those park dedication fund dollar amounts have been embedded in things that Glenn Caldwell has been coming and showing you about work in progress on a variety of our park projects. So you've seen those improvements. Some of those actually have already happened out in the real world. We're just having the budget catch up with that. And then on TERS number 1, you'll remember I gave you a presentation here recently where these budget line items were the ones that were approved by your tax increment refinance zone, and those came forward to you in resolution form so you could approve the TERS spending the money, and now Jay's taken the step of embedding them into ordinance form in the budget. So it's all methodically following that step-by-step process.
So Jay, if you would, please, for our revenues budgeted in this year, we were at 14 million. 43, is that was your number?
For sales tax, or? You're talking about the summary piece?
Yeah, the number in
general
yellow.
fund.
Yeah, the number in yellow down there is just the total of the line
Yeah,
items is
yeah.
changing.
Yes.
Our total budget number was over $30 million in revenue. Yeah.
So this is just, these are totals that you have at the bottom, the revenues and the expenditures based on only what you've pulled out.
Yeah, based
The
on.
only ones that are being affected.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
okay. And so is that a net gain or a loss?
Well, this is a net gain, just on this sheet here of $714,435.67.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify and make sure that our finance director is telling us that. We're not guessing, right? Make sure that whenever we have budget amendments, we need to know what the
the
bottom
impact
line
is,
is for us. Was it a net gain or a loss
Exactly.
to the budget? So,
Yeah.
okay. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Terrell, I just want to get some understanding about these numbers here. For example, like with the network services, that $256,380 is that what the original budget was, and then there was an additional $150,000? How does that work?
Yeah, the 256,000 is the original budget that was adopted. And then the last number, the 406,000, is what's being requested. And the number in the middle is the difference between what's being requested and what originally was adopted.
So 150 is what was being.
Yeah, that's the increase. That's how much they want in additional expenditures in that account.
That just seemed like a lot. Anyway, just I understand now, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Jay, I do have a couple, maybe there are more than a couple questions. This item is a discuss and consider, so I'd like my questions to be answered if we're going to vote on them today.
Okay.
So for the amendment, did you say this was current, you said this was current sales tax dollars, not projected, or are they projected?
These are projected.
Projected.
Yeah, projected.
Through the end of the fiscal year? And do we anticipate to use all of the projected dollars by the end of this fiscal year? Do we anticipate some of it may roll over?
There's a possibility. What I like to do is, like me personally, this is just the way I think of it. We try to be conservative, moving towards the end of the fiscal year, and monitor our overall revenues to make sure that they're, hitting where they're supposed to hit, as far as where we adopted them in the budget. And if we end the year good, you can make any, based on how we end, you can make decisions in FY23 budget rather than doing it within this fiscal year.
And
That
so
leads into my next question.
let me just give a little tag on to what Jay said there. You can read the 714 there as the amount of money that if we hit every budget number, right? We never hit every budget number exactly, but let's say we hit all our budget numbers correctly.
Yeah.
Then you would be carrying over an additional 714,000 in your fund balance, which will give you some flexibility about making decisions in FY23.
Yeah.
Based on your projections, do you anticipate we might have another budget amendment or not likely before the end of the fiscal year?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we'll have a year-end budget amendment to clean some stuff up. And that's how, how you should do it from year to year. But I do expect to come back with a final budget amendment to clean up some line items.
Okay. And I was looking at the different chamber line items because certainly here we have the partnership agreements. But I was curious to see, I believe it was 166,000 in additional that was going to the chamber. And then aside from that, I was also wondering, well, actually, let's take that one at a time. I believe the chamber received the money that they're allotted for based on the formulas that we have for the tax dollars, hot sales. And for the chamber, I believe, he'll help me navigate back to
If you look at agenda item page 235, then you'll see expenses in the tourism fund. And so here's the way I would read the tourism fund part of it. We have a contract with the Chamber of Commerce, so it's a formula, right? We take in certain dollar amounts from certain hotels, they get 50% of that. And what we did when we adopted our FY22 budget originally is we simply didn't include budget line items for that, right? So this isn't anything new at all. What this is the amount of money that we already pay them by contract. Jay's just doing his due diligence and making sure it's also shown in the budget, right? So that way, when we go through our audit process, we're not saying, well, gosh, that line item didn't get approved by council. You approved the contract, we're spending based on the contract, but we also want to do the due diligence of putting it into the budget itself.
Thank you for that answer. Then is that the same answer for event support where we're?
Event support is the only one that's sort of a policy issue. So think about it like this. We support Jubilee, we support the two-day 4th of July event. We do event support for a lot of things that cause tourism to come to Terrell. And so when we look at that budget, that we have a small budget for that in the general fund, we really felt like, you know what, we've spent a lot on that this time around, and we wanted to have a little bit of a fund there so that we have a place to put additional expenses associated with that. So that would be everything from police overtime to making sure that we pay vendors who come out to do a thing at the 4th of July event. So.
And then of course, downtown realization, I believe you mentioned that was for the Grove Street sidewalk.
Yes, we're using the name in the budget that is the name of the grant, but it's actually the Grove Street sidewalks. And those are under construction right now.
I did have another question regarding the parkland dedication funds, and help me remember here, did we change at one point we discussed the policy of the regional areas that would determine park dedication funds, but I don't recall us actually implementing a policy or changing a policy.
Well, we've looked at that a couple of times recently, and I'm going to say that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, pardon me for not remembering exactly, we did pass a resolution that reestablished those zones so that we had clarity on what the geographic area associated with each zone is. And so we used that resolution that we passed some time ago to make sure that we identify those. And when money goes in, it goes in by that resolution. When money comes out, you're basically saying, okay, that's northeast quadrant. So northeast quadrant is going to be Arley White, and that's the only park in that particular area at this time. But if you look at one of the other subzones, my memory's failing me right now, but I believe Kings Creek and Stallings are considered to be in the same subzone. And so we are only proposing to spend a little bit money on the Kings Creek side of it because we just had other sources of funding, the deferred park maintenance, that sort of thing, that were helping us spend money in Stallings Park. So and I think actually on the Kings Creek one, some of these are what you talked to Glenn about recently at one of our recent council meetings where we had made some small improvements at Kings Creek, and now we're just sort of identifying, hey, we got to make sure we set the budget line item up correctly for that. And I would kind of compliment Jay real quick. So again, you know, we always try to get better. It's a big motto around here. We're always trying to get better. For years, we would not reflect Parkland Dedication Fund or hotel occupancy tax in the main part of your budget ordinance. But as Jay has gone through and just continues to do upgrades in the finance department, those are two areas where he came forward to me and said, hey, let's make sure that we get those shown in the budget so we have better transparency for the public and we're not just doing things by contract or by internal process. We're doing those by city council identified. I can see it in the ordinance process. So it does seem new, but that's because we're trying to get better at what we do.
I do have one final question, and thanks for that answer. One final question for the Crossroads funding. What do we expect to, how do we expect to spend the $150,000?
So we have a contract in place with Friesen Nichols, and they are doing the engineering associated with that park. And so, again, you've approved the contract for them to do that engineering work, and this is reflecting it in the budget form. And I would say they will not be done with that engineering before the end of the fiscal year, but we will have expended most of that 153, but we won't be quite done with the engineering, and we'll have some rollover expenses next year.
Mike, have we officially named that the Gold Star Park?
No, we carry that name around, but we have not had that vote yet. Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor Ronnie, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
I'm done with my questions. Thank you,
All right.
Jay.
As we continue to move toward the end of the year, I would remind council, you know, reserves is a big topic for us as we have additional money, hopefully, that we can build some of these reserves up, and then we'll have money to fall back on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jay. Very good report. Anybody have any comments, any further comment? Is there a motion on item 9.1?
I make a motion that we approve item 9.1.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of those present. Next item on the agenda is 9.2, discuss and consider development agreement for the South Adelaide Partnership. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we've had a series of these come forward, and I want to be very clear that I think we have a good effort going here, where we've got a new process, we're trying to implement it correctly, we're trying to make sure we facilitate infill development. We've got strangely shaped lots, we've got lots that are too thin, we've got lots that seem either extra long or extra wide. Well, in this particular case, at a previous council meeting, we had a lot of conversation about the idea of, well, if we put this 25-foot lot together with a 75-foot lot, that'll combine for one 100-foot lot, and is that the right thing to do on this piece of ground? Well, as we kind of looked at our process and how are we doing this, one of the things that Steve brought forward, and I thought this was a great point, was we're creating a situation where your Planning and Zoning Commission will need to vote on the thing we're looking at right now, right? They're going to have to vote and say, are they comfortable with the idea that a 25-foot lot can get combined with a 75-foot lot to make two 50-foot lots? So the development agreement really presupposes that your Planning and Zoning Commission will be happy with the plat when the plat shows up to them. And we don't want to force Planning and Zoning Commission to do things. So my suggestion for you is we really take a deep breath here and say, okay, what's the right thing to do? The background information that's in the agenda item report, I think, says it well. And so I'm going to walk through that as you mull this over. Again, as discussed prior, the landowner could take a 25-foot lot and a 75-foot lot and build one house, but they prefer to do two houses and to follow SF6 rules when they do those two houses. So one option for the landowner is to go forward to ZBA. And they could go forward to ZBA and they could say, hey, I have a hardship, I have a 25-foot lot, it's not buildable. ZBA, would you pretty please endorse redoing this? And then the ZBA action would be irrevocable, right? It would be, boom, that's a decision. On the other hand, it's a high-risk maneuver, right? Because the ZBA is a tool with only a sledgehammer. You're either going to say yes, or you're going to say no. And it's a big moment. Can't get turned down at ZBA and then come back around and think you're going to do that project. The second option is the pathway that we went down, and he worked with our municipal development team there, and he said, okay, what we'd like to do is to enter a development agreement to move the lot line and create those two. That gives us the increase in the brick and stone requirement. It tweaks a little bit the building size to make it just a little bit smaller of a building on each of the buildings. It creates some additional landscape enhancements and some other what I'd call minor quality enhancements to the building. So you get just a little bit nicer of a house out there, and in conjunction with doing that through the development agreement process. So think about your options tonight. A yes vote would say, go ahead and proceed along these lines, put in a development agreement, but oh, by the way, you got to go ask the P&Z, the Planning and Zoning Commission, if they agree with you and if they're willing to approve the plat associated with the project. So that's a problem with a yes vote today, is you're not quite sure yet how your P&Z is going to react. A no vote would mean that the owner would retain the option of going to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. So the owner still is going to have an option here in the process. The recommendation from city staff is going to be that probably the thing that makes the most sense is to table the action, although I guess Dawn might advise me if I'm using the right word there, but to postpone the item, thank you, postpone the item pending planning and zoning consideration. Let's go see what your Planning and Zoning Commission thinks about this item. I know that the two council people who weren't here had a lot of conversation between the two of them about, did this make sense? Was this the right thing? Should we have one house on one 100-foot lot? Should we have two houses on two 50-foot lots? That whole conversation, I think, is a good idea for planning and zoning to sort of hash through that, have that conversation. Let's find out what they think about it and see if they think that this agreement makes sense, see if they think that the plat makes sense. So my suggestion for you is postpone the item pending consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission. If somebody made that motion, then we could step back, we could go through your Planning and Zoning Commission and see if we can get a little bit of clarity here and make sure you as a city council and your Planning and Zoning Commission can get onto the same page with this. So I'll hand that over to you guys.
Or we can act. I'm in favor of doing planned developments. It gives us an opportunity to get a better product, but I will leave it up to the council members as to what you would like to do.
I just feel to have proper due diligence with this project is to let our planning and zoning, take a view first.
Okay, then we need a motion.
Mike, would we, for similar developments like this, would it always need to go through planning and zoning first?
Almost all of these that are in this pipeline have a platting element. And so I don't want to say 100% forever, yes, yes. I think that a lot of them probably need to go through that process. I think that I need to sit down with Greg and with Marigale because there's some nuances out there about minor plats and how you administer a minor plat and how that there is an administrative process for that. So I don't want to say 100%, but I want to say a high number, okay?
It's usually what's happening We found lots there that have been platted in the past that, well, I was just telling Councilman Simpson over here, we used to call them shotgun lots. They're just real thin lots. You really can't develop anything on them. So, and they need to be replatted much the same way we're doing here, but it needs to be something that planning and zoning takes a look at and approves, I would say, but before we really get into the nuts and bolts of it all.
The owner is here tonight, and I don't want to necessarily put him on the spot, but your Planning and Zoning Commission, they're normally going to bring somebody up and say, let's talk about this for a while. So you can get ready to talk at P&Z, and if that's the option council chooses there.
So if the developer, the owner has, but I'd be interested in hearing from the developer if he's here today and give us an opportunity instead of having him come twice.
Yep, all right. If you would, please come forward.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Papadopoulos. I'm with Papino Homes. We actually have built homes out in the Colony area, Carrollton area, and recently bought some lots here in Terrell. Talking to some of our friends that have done very well out here in building. We currently have 2 lots on Mount Olive that we're building some single-family homes on. And the goal with the Adelaide was, we bought it from a wholesaler who said, you know, hey, the game plan would be you could split these up into 50-foot lots and then go ahead and build 2 single-family homes. Obviously, after we bought it, we realized, oh, that may not be the case. So now we have a 75-foot lot and 25-foot lot. The goal would be, after talking to Omaria, was to go ahead, build some better quality homes, obviously re-brick them the whole 100%, put some beautiful landscaping over there, and then go ahead and try to put the 2 homes, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes on the 2 lots. We're hoping that can get approved. We can move forward. We have been mowing the lot, keeping it, nice and clean, in hopes of being able to build something and have it done within 4 to 6 months.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I do have an additional question.
Sure.
Mike, when this item first came forward, remind me, the current lot size is not conducive to doing the townhomes?
I would say that the townhome issue on this piece of land got confusing at a prior council meeting because it just didn't get said out loud correctly. Remember that the recent zoning change requires townhouse projects to be on no less than 4 acres. Because you don't have 4 acres in this case, you can't really do rear parking. Our townhouse requirement is for rear parking only. So it really just isn't a good fit for townhouse for that reason. I think the primary question mark here is, do you want to have I think the awkward end game here would be somebody builds one house on a 75-foot lot, and then somebody, and I'm not accusing our current owner of this because I'm sure they'll do a good job, but eventually, if we put a house on a 75-foot lot and there's a blank 25-foot lot sitting there, then 10, 15 years from now, it's still going to be a 25-foot lot. Somebody's going to sell it to somebody else. Somebody's going to stop mowing it. Some problem's going to come up with it, and it's the same maintenance problem we have with 25-foot lots throughout the city. So to me, that's the awkward version of this. You don't want to end up with one house on a 75-foot lot and then an unmaintained 25-foot lot. So that's just a historic problem in Terrell. You got to figure out solutions for that. Nobody here caused 25-foot lots to happen, and we're just trying to find solutions for 25-foot lots. So.
My other concern is if we did put this, a duplex or townhome on there, it'll eventually probably become a rental property. Whereas we put 2 single-family homes, the goal is to obviously put 2 homesteads over there. So.
Ownership.
You've got the right idea, I guarantee you, sir, but I think really to get it right, you're gonna have to go through P&Z and let them replat those things the way you want them to be done. 2 50-foot lots.
And we do have CBG already ready. As of yesterday, they said, we're ready to replat it if needed and put the 2 50-foot lots there, and then we could start, obviously.
Well, what this would do is if we're okay with it, they just wouldn't have to come back. right? They would have the council's approval, and then ZBA would say, yeah, we agree to it. Then they get-
I'm going to confess that I didn't think of that option, but it is definitely an option. You could if you were interested in moving forward, you could move that you approve the development agreement contingent upon planning and zoning approval. So if, that would be another way of phrasing it, and that would get your P and Z involved.
Exactly.
Or if we just approve it, then he's still gonna need to go and get it replatted.
I would guess that your planning and zoning would appreciate the contingency tag to that motion, yeah.
Yeah, okay?
Well, the properties are in my district, and I've viewed the area, I've heard, the comments from the last meeting and this meeting. I do appreciate, the proper steps going through, following the process of going through planning and zoning. If they feel like this is, meets, if they're in line with what we're approving, or I plan to make the motion to approve the development agreement contingent of planning and zoning approval. Wouldn't need them to come back at a third time.
Okay, is that your motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the development agreement, as listed in item 9.2, contingent of planning and zoning approval.
Have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of those present. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Here,
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Welcome, son. Welcome, John.
Good luck with your development.
Yep.
sir.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Greg?
Yes, sir. We have one item on the consent agenda, Mr. Mayor, and that is ordinance number 2910, an ordinance of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Chapter 10 subdivisions, Article 3 subdivision design standards, Section 8 utility services not provided by the City of Terrell, subsection A, paragraph 1 utility services, paragraph 3 lateral lines, all of paragraph B, D, and additional paragraph J. Also, Chapter 4 building regulations, Section 4-5 electrical code, by adding paragraph X optical fiber cables, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This comes to you tonight on second reading.
Have any new questions? Hearing none, is there a motion on item 10.1?
Mayor, make a motion on the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of those present. Our next item on the agenda is information reports. Receive National Incident-Based Reporting System for May of 2022 report. Mike?
Mayor and Council, that's your standard monthly report from the Police Department, so take a look at it. If you have any questions about it, just let me or Chief McKean know, and always happy to follow up on that. Yes, sir, we do.
At this time, we will adjourn into executive session in accordance This time, we're going to reconvene into a regular session and consider any action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. Are there any motions?
I move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute demolition agreement for Terrell Original Block 77, Lot 16 at 200 East Nash, Terrell, Texas, in the amount not to exceed $45,000 from the Public-Private Partnership Fund.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council present. Next item, or is there another motion?
Yes, I move to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an asbestos and hazard removal agreement for Terrell Original Block 80, Lot 1 at 119 North Francis Street, Terrell, Texas, an amount not to exceed $85,000 from the Public-Private Partnership Fund.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous consent of the council.